Welcome. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Beautiful. What a lovely time. What a lovely time to share together in this, the spirit of giving. Yep, and tonight we're going with one of the all-time classics. We seem to show this at Christmas time, I think in 2021, and we've shown it many times over the years, but it's always a beautiful reminder of how everything works together for good, and the journey of the seeming journey is one of humbleness and one of letting go and one of deep connection and deep communication, one of collaboration. And tonight's movie is Family Man, from back in... Wow! The hands flew up, the arms flew up with that one. It's beautiful. Well, I think the core message we're going for tonight is you can't know who you are as Christ or Spirit if you believe you are something else, a dream figure. And so this movie tonight is one of the all-time classics at getting a glimpse at a different timeline. And it's interesting too, because over the last several years, it's probably been going on for a while, but I was actually interviewed at the beginning of last week by my friend Dakini Wild, and one of her early questions in the interview was, you know, there's a big trend going on now in spirituality, David, and it's timeline jumping. It's quantum timeline jumping is getting very popular, she said, but I would like to look at it more from the perspective of A Course in Miracles. So everybody's heard of the multiverse. This is kind of jumping timelines from one to another. So I looked it up, because in this movie it's called A Glimpse. The angel is giving the main character, Jack, a glimpse. And so I just looked up, what is quantum jumping? We have to stay up on the terms, you know. We have to stay with the lingo of the day. We may meet people along the street and they go, what do you think about quantum jumping? Well, quantum jumping is a process where you project a desired result or state of being that is different from your existing situation by observing the new timeline and changing your energetic state. This will initiate a shift into that alternative timeline. To catapult your shift to a new timeline, this quantum jump uses advanced energy techniques to bring coherence to your desired outcome. The idea behind quantum jumping is that you are living in a multiverse of parallel universes. Usually these alternate universes are believed and seen to have no connection to one another. We know that's not true. Connecting to other timelines, the connection is so complete that you can walk into another place in time. Even though both of, quote, you still exist in the universe, your awareness of the new timeline merges and becomes your current awareness, leaving the other timelines seemingly out of reach and out of sight. So I actually looked in YouTube, and I looked for an introductory video for us for quantum jumping, knowing that our community is getting into things pretty quickly. We're into AI now, so this could be our next thing for a while, quantum jumping. We've seen this movie a lot of times, so wouldn't be surprised if we started to have expression sessions about quantum jumping going on to different timelines. But when she's talking about reality, she says sometimes it even can seem to be unreality, but she's basically saying what we observe, what we perceive is what we believe. So we're always perceiving exactly what we believe. So everything that we perceive is exactly as we believe it to be. And that's why Jesus says your brother is the mirror in which you see the perception, the image of yourself, as long as the perception lasts. So it's not reality as we know it, changeless, eternal spirit, but perception is always just a wish, part of a wish to be separate, or a wish to have an existence unlike God created the Christ. So, we are really learning from Jesus that reality is eternal spirit and has nothing to do with the body or time. So I thought before we go into our movie today, I would just go through a few sections of the Course that are great reminders. It give a much more transcendent view of the world than anything we were ever conditioned with when we were growing up. The first one is from the section, The Hero of the Dream. The body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. There is no dream without it, nor does it exist without the dream in which it acts as if it were a person to be seen and be believed. It takes the central place in every dream, which tells the story of how it was made by other bodies, born into the world outside the body, lives a little while and dies, to be united in the dust with other bodies dying like itself. In the brief time allotted it to live, it seeks for other bodies as its friends and enemies. Its safety is its main concern, its comfort is its guiding rule. It tries to look for pleasure and avoid the things that would be hurtful. Above all, it tries to teach itself its pains and joys are different and can be told apart. The dreaming of the world takes many forms because the body seeks in many ways to prove it is autonomous and real. It puts things on itself that it has bought with little metal disc or paper strips the world proclaims as valuable and real. It works to get them doing senseless things and tosses them away for senseless things it does not need and does not even want. It hires other bodies that they may protect it and collect more senseless things that it can call its own. It looks about for special bodies that can share its dream. Sometimes it dreams it is a conqueror of bodies weaker than itself, but in some phases of the dream it is the slave of bodies that would hurt and torture it. The body's serial adventures from the time of birth to dying are the theme of every dream the world has ever had. The, quote, hero of this dream will never change, nor will its purpose. Through the dream itself, though the dream itself takes many forms and seems to show a great variety of places and events wherein its hero finds itself, the dream has but one purpose taught in many ways. The single lesson does it try to teach again and still again and yet once more that it is cause and not effect, and you are its effect and cannot be its cause. Thus are you not the dreamer but the dream, and so you wander idly in and out of places and events that it contrives. That this is all the body does is true, for it is but a figure in a dream. But who reacts to figures in a dream unless he sees them as if they were real? The instant that he sees them as they are, they have no more effects on him, because he understands he gave them their effects by causing them and making them seem real. How willing are you to escape the effects of all the dreams the world has ever had? Is it your wish to let no dream appear to be the cause of what it is you do? Then let us merely look upon the dream's beginning, for the part you see is but the second part, whose cause lies in the first. No one asleep and dreaming in the world remembers his attack upon himself. No one believes there really was a time when he knew nothing of a body and could never have conceived this world as real. He would have seen at once that these ideas are one illusion, too ridiculous for anything but to be laughed away. The second section I picked out was called Dream Roles, because it seems obvious to us that it's just the mind's identification with the roles that brings guilt. It's not what a body does or doesn't do. It's never guilt associated with behavior. It's simply guilt associated with the mind forgetting its wholeness, its completion, its love and light, and then identifying with roles. And Jesus is pointing out and telling us basically the only, quote, role that will ever satisfy us is the role of being the dreamer of the dream. No specific roles will ever satisfy as a person. There's no amount of achievement or accomplishment or highlighting any roles that will ever make them more than guilt. So they're all just different forms of guilt, different seeming manifestations. So this is dream roles. Do you believe that truth can be but some illusions? They are dreams because they are not true. Their equal lack of truth becomes the basis for the miracle, which means that you have understood that dreams are dreams, and that escape depends not on the dream, but only on awaking. Could it be some dreams are kept and others wakened from? The choice is not between which dreams to keep, but only if you want to live in dreams or to awaken from them. Thus, it is the miracle that does not select some dreams to leave untouched by its beneficence. You cannot dream some dreams and wake from some, for you are either sleeping or awake, and dreaming goes with only one of these. The dreams you think you like would hold you back as much as those in which the fear is seen. For every dream is but a dream of fear, no matter what the form it seems to take. The fear is seen within, without, or both, or it can be disguised in pleasant form, but never is it absent from the dream, for fear is the material of dreams, from which they are all made. Their form can change, but they cannot be made of something else. The miracle were treacherous indeed if it allowed you to still to be afraid because you did not recognize the fear. You would not then be willing to awake, for which the miracle prepares the way. In simplest form, it can be said, attack is a response to function unfulfilled as you perceive the function. It can be in you or in someone else, but where it is perceived, it will be there. It is attacked. So that's a key. In simplest form, it can be said, attack is response to function unfulfilled as you perceive the function. So, in other words, if you believe in the dream roles, then you will assign, the mind will assign some of those dream roles to the character that seems to be who you are, and it will assign more roles to those around that character, to other dream figures. And if you feel that any body, either the body that seems to be yourself or any other body on the planet or even in outer space, outer beings, aliens, if you believe any being is not fulfilling the role that was assigned to it, then that's where the anger comes up. So it's like you're never upset for the reason you think, you're just upset because some assigned role, which was just artificially assigned, not with the light of truth, but just artificially given from the ego, and someone is not playing the role. It can be self-condemnation or condemnation of others based on you are not fulfilling the role that was given you. And Jesus is like, actually, you weren't given any role other than forgiveness. Forgive it all. Forgive the whole thing. When you are angry, it is not because Is it not because someone has failed to fill the function you allotted him? And does not this become the, quote, reason your attack is justified? The dreams you think you like are those in which the functions you have given have been filled. The needs which you ascribe to you are met. It does not matter if they be fulfilled or merely wanted. It is the idea that they exist from which the fears arise. Dreams are not wanted more or less. They are desired or not. And each one represents some function that you have assigned, some goal which an event or body or a thing should represent and should achieve for you. If it succeeds, you think you like the dream. If it should fail, you think the dream is sad. But whether it succeeds or fails is not its core, but just the flimsy covering. How happy would your dreams become if you were not the one who gave the, quote, proper role to every figure which the dream contains. No one can fail but your idea of him, and there is no betrayal but of this. The core of dreams the Holy Spirit gives is never one of fear. So, yeah, from those first two sections, the hero of the dream and dream roles, it's obvious that the guilt is arising from the belief that you can assign specific roles to yourself or to anyone else. And that's why you can see the workbook lessons, nothing I see means anything, I have given everything I see, all the meaning it has for me, I'm never upset for the reason I think. It's just the practical designed mind training by Jesus to help us empty our mind, like Buddha had said, empty your mind of everything you think, and think you know. And the movie tonight, we will see this kind of timeline shift, or this glimpse, because without this glimpse, there's really no contrast to the mesmerism, no contrast to the hypnotism. The mind can be so accustomed and familiar to the figures, the names, the false meanings, everything that's ascribed to the dream, that it begins to believe that what is dreamed is reality. And that's what the woman who was talking about the quantum jumping, she was using that word reality as if there was something in form that was a reality. And then she seemed to say that it can become so unrecognizable that what seems to be reality is actually unreal. So she came right around to kind of contradicting that whole idea of reality in form. If all illusions are of fear, and they can be of nothing else, the illusion of heaven is nothing more than a, quote, attractive form of fear, in which the guilt is buried deep and rises in the form of, quote, love. And then the last section I'll read before we start our beautiful movie here is called Self-Concept versus Self. I remember the first time I read this, now we're getting down to the bare truth. The learning of the world is built upon a concept of the self adjusted to the world's reality. It fits it well, for this an image is that suits a world of shadows and illusions. Here it walks at home, where what it sees is one with it. The building of a concept of the self is what the learning of the world is for. This is its purpose, that you come without a self and make one as you go along. And by the time you reach, quote, maturity, you have perfected it to meet the world on equal terms, at one with its demands. A concept of the self is made by you. It bears no likeness to yourself at all. It is an idol made to take the place of your reality as Son of God. The concept of the self the world would teach is not the thing it appears to be, for it is made to serve two purposes, but one of which the mind can recognize. The first presents the face of innocence, the aspect acted on. It is this face that smiles and charms and even seems to love. It searches for companions, and it looks at times with pity on the suffering and sometimes offers solace. It believes that it is good within an evil world. This aspect can grow angry, for the world is wicked and unable to provide the love and shelter innocence deserves. And so this face is often wet with tears at the injustices the world accords to those who would be generous and good. This aspect never makes the first attack, but every day 100 little things make small assaults upon its innocence, provoking it to irritation and at last to open insult and abuse. The face of innocence, the concept of the self so proudly wears, can tolerate attack in self-defense, for is it not a well-known fact the world deals harshly with defenseless innocence? No one who makes a picture of himself omits this face, for he has need of it. The other side he does not want to see, yet it is here the learning of the world has set its sights, for it is here the world's, quote, reality is set, to see to it, the idol asks. Beneath the face of innocence there is a lesson that the concept of the self was made to teach. It is a lesson in terrible displacement, and a fear so devastating that the face that smiles above it must forever look away, lest it perceive the treachery it hides. The lesson teaches this: I am the thing you made of me, and as you look on me, you stand condemned because of what I am. On this conception of the self, the world smiles with approval, for it guarantees the pathways of the world are safely kept, and those who walk on them will not escape. Here is the central lesson that ensures your brother is condemned eternally, for what you are has now become his sin. For this is no forgiveness possible. So you see how dark, it's the shadow that Jung talked about, it's the unconscious darkness that's so dark that the mind made up a top-tier self-concept, and that's our personality self and personality world. And so it seems to be a mix of some good and bad, some good days, good feelings, bad feelings, but the personality self and the surrounding world is the mask that covers over the dark underbelly, we'll call it. Concepts are learned, they are not natural. Apart from learning, they do not exist. They are not given, so they must be made. Not one of them is true, and many come from feverish imaginations, hot with hatred and distortions born of fear. What is a concept but a thought to which its maker gives a meaning of its own? Concepts maintain the world, but they cannot be used to demonstrate the world is real. So, really what we're seeing is this ring of fear is what must be transcended, and as we go along what seems to be the spiritual journey, it just seems like this ring of fear pops into awareness from time to time, and it seems very discouraging, very frustrating, very annoying, but Jesus is saying, don't be concerned, this must come to the light, it must come to the light for correction. So be not dismayed, be not turned away in your journey to the light, for this must arise. The world was made in hatred, but now we offer it to the Holy Spirit to give us a new purpose. So the movie tonight the main character is Jack Campbell, and he's going to start off with a self-concept of he's an investment funds manager. He seems to enjoy the self-concept of wealth, of power, of the ability to, as he says, I can purchase anything I want. He seems to see a value in I can purchase anything I want. And then when he's asked, what do you need, by Cash, our friendly angel, very unusual angel in this movie. I like unusual angels, but Cash is basically saying, what do you need? And he says, I don't need anything. I have everything in my life. And that's when Cash, of course, will say, this is going to be good. When you believe you have everything in this world, it's literally a contradiction in terms, because what Jesus is teaching us is to have is to be. What you have is what you are. What you have is spirit. What you have is Christ identity. What you have is eternal life. And that's what you are. And in this world, having and being are not seen as the same. I have a body, I have a bank account, I have a relationship, I have a country, I have a language. It doesn't matter what you put after the I have, it's still just a projection. Interestingly enough, I saw a quote that I posted on my Facebook profile where Jesus was saying that sin is projected outward as a body. So you might say that's kind of a pretty strong connection there. But if you think of sin as error, that the projection of error is what the body is. It's made manifest as a body. And that's why the hero of the dream section is so important about, it's not about having a better body, having a better dream for the body, dreaming a better body. It's not about time jumping or anything of the sort. It's about disidentifying from something that God did not create, that will never be your home. It will never satisfy you. So the sooner it can be seen for what it is, its neutrality, its nothingness, then the better. Also, good news is that bodies never make mistakes. It's only the mind that makes. The learning device cannot make a mistake. So the body has actually, in that context, never done anything wrong or right. It's simply a learning device for the mind to forgive. That's very relaxing, but you also see that it takes you into the realm of deep forgiveness beyond this idea of looking for rights and wrong in form and then judging your brother, judging your sister for something that as spirit they could never do, either positively or negatively. So that's the depth of true forgiveness. We have a synopsis of this movie too in the Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment. Jack Campbell is a wealthy, autonomous, fast-lane investment broker who believes he is living the high life. He has no idea what he is in for when the Spirit intervenes and gives him a glimpse of an alternative, relationship-focused life that requires him to develop patience, tolerance, and acceptance of what is. This film is perfect for showing the helpfulness of family for opening up to love and commitment and putting something other than self-centered goals first. I choose us is the acceptance of the relationship given now. It is choosing the present and trusting that everything else will be taken care of, including the future. The ego's use of family relationships is to maintain specialness and separation and to make an idol out of the relationships. The Spirit can use what the ego made to point towards the truth and for deepening in communication, integrity, and intimacy. Relationships can be used to allow specialness and fear of loss to arise for the purpose of healing. As the mind opens up to the idea of sharing and extending with the whole sonship, rather than just with a few relationships, the transfer value of what was learned in the family context is immeasurable. As communication deepens, limited family concepts fall away, and the experience of love and connection can be experienced with all. The ego always resists change because its salvation rests upon maintaining the status quo in form. Therefore, allowing and accepting the Spirit's guided changes in form is the pain-free way to awaken. The undoing need not be painful, but it is usually so experienced by the ego. Okay, let's pause. So when you see those first scenes, it reminds me a lot of Lesson 135, where Jesus says, a healed mind is relieved of the belief that it must plan. The whole world is nothing more than the belief that you can create yourself any way you want to be, and do it through planning. Planning always involves activating past learning, trying to organize the present, and of course plan the future. And you can see he seems to be pretty happy singing his song. He seems to be in a timeline scenario where he's a very successful financial investor. He has a very big apartment in a high-rise where he has a lot of space, and he seems to have control over what seems to be his personal life. But what Jesus is telling us is that is not success. That goes for success in the world, but Jesus is saying, you really think you can plan for yourself better than the Spirit can guide you? And he seems through power, money, intelligence, and his career, his very successful career, and what he believes is his very successful persona, his mask, a very successful mask, that he is on top of the world. And therefore he's got an artificial sense of joy. I just read earlier that in the hero of the dream basically believes that it can tell the difference between its pains and joys. And that seems to be common sense, to think you can tell the difference between pain and joy. But Jesus says, if you actually could tell the difference between pain and joy, you would experience only joy. You would never fall for the temptations of pain, pleasures and pains. So it goes into how clever the ego is, setting up a world where guilt is attractive and seems to take many, many, many attractive forms, which are distractions or temptations. So he's now had a moment where his girlfriend, who's played by Tia Leone, she basically says, I have a bad feeling about this, him flying off to London. Let's flush the plan, and I choose us, meaning I choose the present moment, I choose love, I choose our connection. Let's flush the plan. We don't know what's coming in the future, and we don't need to know. This is so reminiscent of the setting the goal section in A Course in Miracles. This is so reminiscent of the rules for decision section in A Course in Miracles, where you decide the kind of day that you want, the kind of feelings you want, and then you say, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. This is the art of living with the Spirit, where you have your goal set on present happiness and joy, and you're not looking to future outcomes to make a better life or a better situation. Remember, Jesus is teaching us that the holy instant is our focus, that we're here to teach and learn, experience the holy instant, and that the body is always remembered or anticipated. So all of the ambitions that involve the body, all the future goals that involve the body are fictitious. They're just imaginations. They're just imaginings to tempt the mind to try to make a better self than the self that God created. And it was so beautiful when she said, let's just flesh the plan. I choose us. And let's just go with us right now and trust, and let present trust lead the way. That is a complete juxtaposition to the way the world teaches. Go for future success. Make yourself a better life. Have something better in the future. Some kind of artificial carrot off in the future that you're supposed to chase after. So here he is. He's in his apartment building, his rental apartment building in New York City, and he goes from boisterously singing loudly to now he hops in the elevator and he's trying to calm down a little bit and act like a good tenant would act in New York City in a behaved manner, although his neighbor has just got in there and he likes to play games with her. His little banter, flirting banter. But it shows that he's not completely happy underneath when he has to resort to different kind of distractions and games to maintain his level of I would say just success. He has a level of success in his mind. He's trying to hold on and maintain that. So the owner of the company says, I'm only a heartless bastard who only cares about money. And Jack's answer is, and God love you for that. So it just shows you how juxtaposed the purposes and the goals of this world are from God. They talk about taking the Lord's name in vain, but putting God's name after a heartless bastard who only cares about money, and God love you for that. It's just showing you that line right there is the contradiction. The world is about the belief you can create yourself bigger, better, faster, more, self-achievement, accomplishment, ambition, achieving goals, building a self-concept, making an image that you can be proud of as yourself, making your mark on time. And yet God is pure love, and God is just saying, come be with me. Come remember me. Come be one with me. Okay. Okay. So the doorman, Mrs. Peterson, and even the minivan are not playing the role that he assigned them to fulfill. It's great when you start to look at the world and you just look at everything. We've had a whole year of elections in different countries. If people got elected that you didn't want elected, or anything happens in the world at all, in your immediate environment with the body or body symptoms, or in his case, it's actually, he's really upset at Tony, Mrs. Peterson, and now you see he's saying, come on, to the minivan. But it doesn't matter, any person or thing that does not fulfill the role that you set. That's why Jesus has that workbook lesson, I have invented the world I see. And in lesson 152, which he says, everything in the world is exactly there by your decision. Every electron in the world, every molecule, every person, every place, every country, every circumstance, down to the most minute detail, is there by election. It's there by decision. Yes, all the specifics are part of wrong-minded decisions, because God didn't create this world, and the right mind is the mind that knows that it's still one with its creator, it's one with its source, it's the home of the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit looks not to effects, but in terms of unreal effects, they're all there down to the most minute detail of what the ego projected. Sin projected outward to a body and to a world and an environment. The body is outside you, but it seems to surround you, shutting you off from others. The world, the cosmos, seems to be outside, but it seems to surround you and the body. But everything is part of a projection, and everything is there by election, meaning by decision. There's nothing at random, there's no such thing as luck, there's no such thing as good fortune and bad fortune. Everything is there precisely because of decision. And that's why there's no victimization, that's why you cannot be unfairly treated. Oh, here comes Nemo, he's checking it out. By decision. He said, I'm going to go check out sit under the Christmas tree. Everything, nothing at random. But that brings you back to a sense of wholeness and completion in your mind, because you start to realize, I can't point the finger at anything in the projected world, because through giving the power of my mind to the ego, that's what the projection is. It's just a projection of beliefs and thoughts. And I can't say, this thought is out of place, because as soon as I point the finger at a person, place, thing, circumstance in the world, then I'm denying that it's there by my own decision. If you spot it, you got it. If you perceive it, you believe it. And there is nothing else but that. There was a great contemporary mystic, I was talking outside to Ken and Nana about Peace Pilgrim and the amazing Peace Pilgrim, and basically when she was just a girl, she heard for the first time the golden rule from the Bible: do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And she said she received an inner confirmation of the reality of the golden rule. And that became a guiding light for her that would lead her in her life decisions. She would start to make decisions from the awareness of that confirmation of the golden rule instead of from something else. Well, there's ISO too. Nemo and ISO. All the kitty cats are out. So how beautiful that we are not the victim of the world we see, because it was invented, and if it was invented, it must be capable of being released. If you can invent fiction, you can release the fiction just as easily. So you can see all the confidence that he had. You know, when he's up there in his apartment, the song's playing, he's singing in the elevator. You know, it reminds me a little bit of a Frank Sinatra song. Got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got the string around my finger. What a world, what a life. You know, he thought he was in control because of his money, because of his success, because he could hire people and fire people, because he could do whatever he want, he could buy whatever he want. He had a false esteem, a false sense of happiness, a false sense of confidence. And then once he jumps into this other timeline now, the glimpse, you can see he's frightened in his face. You can see he's scared. When he speaks, it's very monotone. If he's not monotone, like, yeah, okay, he's screaming at Tony or screaming at Betty, his neighbor. He's gone into a very reactive mode. He looks depressed in these scenes, and you can see that his best friend, his good friend in this scenario, in the glimpse, is trying to cheer him up and cheer him up, but he's like despondent because he's just been told that he's in a glimpse and it could take a considerable amount of time for him to figure it out. He's been told. So he's in shock. And what Jesus is teaching us through this movie is, like I read earlier, the dreams that you think you like can hold you back as much as those where the fear has entered. Because it's a false sense of self. Even the dreams that you think you like, even the dreams that you feel attached to, even the dreams, here we are on Thanksgiving, that you're grateful for certain dreams. You're trying to pull a note from Oprah Winfrey's page of Gratitude Notebook. You've written pages and pages of all the things you're grateful for. And Jesus is now saying, even the dreams you think you like, can hold you back as much as those in which the fear enters. Because you're not seeing the world as neutral. You can't let the joy of God burst forth from your heart and shine forth and give a new meaning to the world as long as you give meaning to the dreams. So this is the human condition. That was a good day, that was a bad day. How's your body feeling? I'm good today. Got good energy, good. I'm good. No symptoms, good. Oh, I'm bedridden. No, I'm knocked out. I'm out of action. The positive, the negative, everything about the world that's judged either positively or negatively. There's a workbook lesson, my body is a wholly neutral thing. He wants us to be able to make this year different by making it all the same, by seeing everything as the same in form. Nothing higher, lower, nothing higher priority, lower priority, nothing better or worse, nothing good, bad, wrong, right about form, but just see the world in a right-minded way. Make this year different by making it all the same. And so you can see in this movie it's very pronounced because his first dream, we'll call it, where he was a successful investment banker, he seems to be living the single life. He has a prostitute or a lover over when he wants some companionship. He can buy about anything that he wants. He's in charge of a company. He seems really proud of the big deals, the mergers, because he tells Alan Mintz, I want you to be, the first thing you see is this gift, and it's a gift from me because it has 10 zeros after it. He's proud of the money. He's proud of the possessions. He's proud of the skills, proud of the abilities. But even with skills and abilities, Jesus says, with regard to the body, it's quite common to over-evaluate a learning device. What does he mean by over-evaluate a learning device? The body is a learning device. Nothing but a learning device, no different than any other image, just a learning device. And to over-evaluate it is to project skills and abilities and intelligence onto something that is completely neutral, has no meaning whatsoever. So it's showing it's the mental illness of judgment. It's the mental illness of assigning some meaning to some dreams and other meaning to other dreams. And once he has the glimpse, he's in shock. But what we're going to see as the movie goes on is not only that he's in shock with this new glimpse, he recognizes some of the characters. He recognizes his wife's parents. What was it, Lorraine and Ed? He has to pause for a moment when he sees them for the first time to remember their names, but he's remembering them from past associations. But we're going to see that his biggest problem, in fact the only problem, is judging anything at all. Judgment is not just condemnation. Judgment is any prioritizing of any of the images in any way. Judgment is making a hierarchy of illusions. Judgment is denying the first of the 50 miracle principles, that there's no order of difficulty in miracles. Why is there no order of difficulty in miracles? Why did Jesus didn't care whether it was someone seemed to be possessed by demons, have leprosy, blindness, deafness, or dead as a doorknob? What about Lazarus? People have said, sometime I was traveling one time and somebody said, David, what is the worst form of sickness? And I said, death. If you want to put sickness on a scale, But Jesus is saying there's no even better or worse forms of anything. Death is the belief in the projected world. Sin projected outward as a body and a world. To perceive something where there is nothing is what death is. To perceive something where there is nothing. To perceive something happening where nothing is happening. To perceive something really happening when it's a hallucination and it's not happening. It's just totally imagined. It's just a figment of imagination. That's what death is. It has nothing to do with the body. Because the body is neutral. How can something that's completely neutral be born or died? That's really reading some more meanings. Birth and death are just, I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. So we're seeing in this movie that it's not that Jack is showing us that he's only shocked about the glimpse, but he's actually disgusted. He's disgusted. He's really disgusted with it. He's got a look on his face like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, this is the worst. And it's the judgment of the dream that is the problem. That one dream was better than the other. When Jesus just told us, when I was reading earlier, it's not that some dreams are better than other dreams. You either dream or you're awake. And the awake is what Jesus is saying is the good, and the dreaming, and the judgment involved in the dreaming, judging the dreams specifically as being some certain way, some specific way, that's the problem. That's the problem. The problem is judgment, and Jesus said, judge not. Now we're seeing the full extent of those two words in the Sermon on the Mount. They mean a lot. It's like, not that you're capable of judging and you need to stop, but he's just trying to appeal to the mind and say, you can't do this. You weren't created to judge. You weren't created to invent yourself. You weren't created to make yourself up and then keep changing yourself to try to do makeovers over and over and over. That energy is all part of a death wish. Okay, here we go. Okay, you can see the look on his face, and the look is, again, he doesn't look like he wants to be there. He has a shock on his face. He's just gulping down liquor. He's stuffing food. He seems to be in a state of mind where he does not want to be there. And yet recently, it was only several days ago, we had a workbook lesson where Jesus started off in the first paragraph of the workbook lesson and says, everything that you experience in this world, in your perception, starts off with what you want. Whatever you are perceiving, it's exactly the way it is because you want it to be exactly that way. He has a look like he doesn't want to be at that party. He's avoiding taking care of the kids, and it's like two bad options, and he's chosen the worst of what he judges as two evil options. He doesn't want to take care of the kids, and he doesn't want to go to the party. But what Jesus is saying, everything that you perceive is there by your own election. The reason that he seems to be a body, a man named Jack, at a party, the Thompson party, the annual Thompson Christmas party, is because that entire scenario starts in the mind with him wanting that. I have those levels of mind where I have the center is the desire, the prayer in the middle, then the beliefs come out of that, then the thoughts come out of that, then the emotions come from that, and then the perceptions. At every level of that map of the mind, it starts with the desire. You cannot be anywhere in form unless you want to be there. You're not just placed there randomly. You seem to be a body or a person at a party on Christmas, and as unfamiliar as it seems, and as unstable as he feels, those unstable emotions, you can see his actions, gulping down liquor, stuffing food, very, very awkward, very anxious, very uncomfortable. It's just because of his desire. And Jesus says that in the first paragraph. He goes on in the text to say, I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. He's saying it all starts with what we want. And he also will say in another lesson that to say I want the peace of God is nothing, but to mean it is everything. So the words are not the prayer of the heart. The words are way out there on the screen. But it's the prayer of the heart. What do I want? And that's why a big part of the practice of the Course is to get in touch with the power of your wanting. If you don't get in touch with the power of the mind and the power of wanting, the power of prayer and the power of desire, then the only alternative is to believe you're a victim of a world outside of you, of things that are just happening to you, that you have no control over whatsoever. You're just like a dancing figure in a crazy, insane dream, and you've got to just bounce around like a pinball in a pinball machine. Ding, 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 ding. That's how it feels to many human beings, like they're at the mercy of external forces, but it's just they haven't got in touch with their prayer of their heart. We're talking about Peace Pilgrim. Actually, that on the 7th, I'm going to do, before I go off to Brazil, I'm going to do a session on Saturday the 7th on Peace Program. But in one sense, there was one point where Peace Pilgrim just came to a realization that the most important thing in life was peace. And then she came to another realization that it was the only important thing. It wasn't the most, it was the only. And then suddenly she was taking a walk through some woods and she just thought, I'm peaceful now and I'm just going to keep on walking for peace. I'm not going to stop walking. And I'm not going to stop walking. I'm going to be a wanderer for peace. I'm going to walk for peace until there's world peace. I'm not stopping until I perceive world peace. And her life got extremely simple at that point because she didn't have to weigh the options. Imagine waking up in the morning, peace, 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 peace. Through the day, walk, walk, peace, peace, peace. It was just single-minded devotion to peace. And then everything else took care of itself. And what an extraordinary example and demonstration of single-mindedness. Or what Jesus said in the Bible, let thine eye be single. It's a very strong devotion. So you can see, the thing is, he is thoughts and he's judging the glimpse. He seems to be swept up in this new timeline, and he's just judging the heck out of it. He just is really not satisfied with that because he's judging it and comparing it to what he remembers as his other timeline. And when we do that with anything, we're not being present. We're just back judging, comparing based on the past, or even anticipating a return. Like he said to Cash, the angel in the car, let's talk turkey. What's it going to take? How much money? He thought he was going to buy his way out of this timeline shift. And then Cash, the angel, was like, it doesn't work that way. But I'm working on a big deal. I've got you got a new deal working on now, baby. It's a new deal now. It's a mind training deal. So for all of us, it's like that's the one admission we have to start with. Like, okay, regardless of the scenario, regardless of the timeline, really doesn't matter much. It's all about mind training. So how devoted am I going to be to the mind training, to the forgiveness? Because as we see from this movie, the timeline doesn't really matter. They're really all the same. And it's only the seeming contrasts that are all based on beliefs that are in our mind. Ego beliefs are just making the scenarios and the timelines seem different. To the ego, there's a big difference between being wealthy and living in a big expansive apartment in New York City and being single, juxtaposed being in suburbia in New Jersey with not so much money and married with children and a dog that slobbers on him every morning when he wakes up. The ego says big time difference, but Jesus is trying to help us see, make this year different by making it all the same. Use the strength of your mind and your devotion to purpose. I remember the first time I read through the Course, I was going through and one of these lines jumped out of the book at me. And it was like, only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning. That line was so strong. Only a constant purpose can endow events with stable meaning. And we can see from this movie that it's a rocky ride here for Jack because he's not aware of his purpose. He's just reacting and responding to the dream, and his mind, the consciousness, is generating the dream. So he's caught in a nightmare, in a feedback loop of nightmarish attack thoughts and nightmarish interpreted images that are just going around in some kind of intense loop. You can see it with his daughter, with his wife, with everything. Everyone who perceives himself as a person in the world organizes their world based on their mind's concepts and beliefs, boxes, and then the categories. Then that's how perception works. It's not like light enters and visual stimuli enters in through the iris and through the eye. We think of an external world. We've been taught to believe that there's an external world of light that moves through the eyes, through the irises and into the eyes and gets interpreted by brain signals. We believe that there's sounds, actual real sounds in this world that come, and the sounds hit the eardrum and turn into electrical impulses, and then our brain again interprets based on the sounds. It's not that the five senses are receiving information from an external world, but as Jesus tells us, the eyes actually reproduce. There's thoughts, like the Course Workbook lesson, my thoughts are images I've made. He said, you don't think of yourself as the image maker, but your mind, your split mind is the image maker. And then the five senses and the body, the eyes reproduce what's in the mind. These are mental images. If you look around the room and you see a bunch of people in a room, these are just mental images in the mind. Egoic mental images that have been made up by the ego, and they're projected out using the eyes, and the eyes are reproducing the mental images in the mind. The sounds that we hear in the movie, the sounds of this speaking, and so on and so forth, the ears are translating them, but they're actually part of, instead of being like receivers, they're like speakers. They're part of the projection, the ears are, to the sounds of the world. So stimuli doesn't come from an external world through the brain and get interpreted by the brain. The mind holds on to these false beliefs, false concepts, false images, false thoughts, false emotions, and then projects a world that fits exactly what the mind was looking for. Like that, I showed that woman talking about the quantum timeline jumping, and she was talking about Schrodinger's cat experiment, a very famous experiment. Where they're looking to see whether the cat is dead or alive, but they find that it's all subjective. It depends on whether the experimenter wants the cat to be dead or wants the cat to be alive. What does that mean? What does an experiment like that mean? It means there's no objective external world. It means that everything that we perceive is 100% subjective and 0% objective. That's why there's no basis for anger, because Jesus says the secret of salvation is you're doing this to yourself. Literally, the world that you perceive is exactly the way that you want it to be, without exception. And so you can see, even with the daughters, like, you're not my real dad. Like, she's perceiving that he's not acting and behaving like her dad. And so she has to then shift her perception to the aliens did a good job, with his nose, and they did a really good job. Promise you won't plant things in my brothers and my brain, and take us up to the mothership. And then she finally reaches a point where she's got a concept that she now can put this projection into. Welcome to Earth. Basically, it's not her dad, it's just some kind of an implant that she's okay with, she can work with, and welcome to Earth. She has a new box for him, not dad, not my real dad, because his behaviors are so far outside the box. So this, how profound this is you start to realize that that's why you can't hope that the effects of the world change. Seek not to change the world, Jesus says. Seek rather to change your mind about the world. He's saying you need to pray for peace. Like Mother Mary told the 3 children in Fatima, with the world war going on, pray for peace. That's a very helpful, instructive thing to say, pray for peace, because prayer is where it all starts. The prayer, the desire of our mind, determines everything that we perceive. And that's why Jesus said, let thine eye be single. So this movie is really good, but when you start to bring it home, so to speak, it's like, oh, okay. That's why the mind training is so important. That's why the forgiveness is so important. That's why the release of error. And then like that beautiful dinner that we had, the Thanksgiving dinner, and all the expressions and letters of love, you could feel the vibrations. It was just so deep and so still at the end of that session, because it was just thoughts of love. And only the loving thoughts are real. Only the loving thoughts are true. You could feel, Nana was saying, I felt Jesus. I felt Jesus behind every letter, You could feel it. It's palpable. It's strong. You can feel it. Because that's how powerful the mind is, and when we devote our mind to that one direction, then we will receive exactly what we give. We will receive everything that we pray for. So, aside from his many judgments about Ed's tires, and I'm a tire salesman, and his daughter just shrugs, you can see he's saying, oh, you must have needed this drink every day. He's really judging everything, scene after scene. He's down on everything. He's against everything. He even tries to crumple the paper cup up and throw it away. He misses the shot. Nothing. He has nothing. It's just he's seeing nothing going right. But then when he sees on the wall E.F. Hutton, and he comes out to talk to the salesman, and he said, oh, it was E.F. Hutton broker, and oh, okay. And he's trying in his mind to look to the future for a release from his upset. And that's a common thing for human beings, to look to the future for release from present upset. He says, oh, I was a salesman. That's good. That's a good precursor for M&A. It's for mergers and acquisitions. He's still thinking big money. Mergers and acquisitions. He's still thinking, how can I make big money? Even when he's walking through, talking to a sales associate, he's like, you could build on that. It's always future oriented. And that's why Jesus is saying in Lesson 135, a healed mind is relieved of the belief that it must plan. All future goals, without exception, are self-concept goals of the ego. All future goals. Even if you have a future goal of spiritual enlightenment, it's still egoic, because it's still denying that it's here and now. It's still, he says, be not content with future happiness, for it's not your just reward, for you have cause for freedom now. Everything that we think, say, and do with the Course is teaching us to go for the holy instant. The holy instant is everything. It's the only thing worth giving your mind over to. And then just noticing if you have any fears or resistances, that can be very helpful. Just seeing where am I fighting against this, or where am I resisting this. But you can see with him, it's the thoughts in his mind. Like Jesus says, I can be hurt by nothing but my thoughts. And then the lesson, I will not hurt myself again today with these thoughts. It's always lesson number 23, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. But in the end, it's more than just thinking of attack thoughts as condemnation or criticism, but just starting to realize that even thoughts of the future, it would be the most helpful thing to give those over to the Holy Spirit and just say, I really don't know about the future. Honestly, I really can't say what's coming next. But you're with me, and I want to merge with you and pray with you, and I want you to guide my thoughts, purify my thoughts and guide them. And then that's the beautiful prayer that brings healing. So we can see, he's just having a lot of negative. He's just judging against thing after thing, including working at Ed's tire. Now we're about ready to start to get into what I was talking about the positive and the negative. The dreams that you think you like can hold you back as much as those where the fear is present. So we're going to start to see some scenes too where even though he's in another timeline, he's in a glimpse, he's going to start to notice that he's drawn to certain things, he's attracted to certain things, and again, these kind of things can shift. That's why Jesus has those 9 chapters on special love and special hate relationships, because it can shift very rapidly from special love to special hate. Like the Simon and Garfunkel song, believe I'm gliding down the highway, when in fact I'm slip-sliding away. It's not recognized for what it is. The attraction-repulsion thing is not registering in the mind. So we'll start to see him now in the movie where he's going to notice, even in this timeline, he's just going to have attractions and repulsions start to come up pretty rapidly in his mind. So, they say the love of money is the root of all evil, but the key thing that he said there was, what's in it for me? And if you interpret what's in it for me is, what do I get out of this? And you want to break it down further? Get. There it is. There it is. That's the root of all interpersonal conflict. That's the root of every argument, every struggle, every irritation, every annoyance is the getting mechanism. The ego is a getting mechanism. Come back to Peace Pilgrim again. Once she had the realization that peace was everything, it was the only thing worth anything, then she gave it away. But when she walked, she didn't ask for anything. She didn't ask for food. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for a bed to sleep in. She didn't ask for anything. You see the difference between the getting mechanism, which is the source of all conflict. What's in it for me? What do I get out of this? Is the very question that comes from the ego. Because the ego is the getting mechanism, and all future goals that are based on getting more, getting better, getting something, more intelligence, more money, more possessions, more anything, it's all based on the getting mechanism, and that's the very thing that we need to forgive. We need to forgive ourselves for the error of lack. God didn't create us in lack. And when we believe in lack, then we fall into the getting mechanism. And then on this planet, that getting mechanism can seem to be very thickly layered. If my goal is to get, then education becomes important. If my goal is to get, then achievement. You saw him there in the men's department there saying, I could have been so much of a better man. I could have been more wealthier. He mentioned Forbes. He's just rattling on about all the things that he could have been if he'd been allowed to get, and basically was accusing her of holding him back. You see the projection? Not only the getting mechanism, but then now she's to blame, How could you want this for me? Wouldn't you want to be part of my getting? And she's like, yeah, the Jack that I married didn't need a $2,400 suit to feel good about himself, So this movie is good, but it's like, that's what we're doing with the mind training, is we're cutting through the layers and layers and layers of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's worth striving for in this world, what's not worth striving for, and we're coming back to the simplicity of the present moment, like, oh wow, what if everything I could ever need or want, I already have and am. I think that's from I Heart Huckabees. Dustin Hoffman. But what if that's the case? What if everything I could need or want, I already have and I am? That's what Peace Pilgrim came to. She realized, when I had things, when I had a house, when I had things, I wasn't happy. And so she thought, what have I got to lose if I go for peace? Because I seem to have what the world would say you need to have to be happy, and I wasn't happy. And then she decided to just go for peace in a radical way, in the sense that it was the only thing that was important to her. So to me, this movie is so good because we're seeing it acted out, and we're seeing it in terms of the glimpse, but he's always comparing in his mind to the way we were, the way it was, and now the new way is not stacking up at all. It's just coming up so far in terms of lack. And then he's angry that he's not able to get what he even had before in his awareness. It's like there's a comparison going on too. Like, I had it all, now I've got nothing. Is kind of the judgment that he's throwing in there. So again, we come back to something that I read earlier from Jesus. The dreaming of the world takes many forms because the body seeks in many ways to prove it is autonomous and real. So, we have to get underneath this. What perpetuates the dream but worldly ambition? And what if the holy instant is our life, is our love, it's the present moment? It sounds strange in this world to talk about the present moment as a devotion, but what if the holy instant, what if we're meant to teach and learn the holy instant? We're not to prepare for it by placing it in the future, but we're to really put our prayer and devotion into it. And so you can see there was a Course in Miracles teacher who was a Sikh from India. Some of you might remember Tara Singh. And Tara Singh came up, I remember watching a video one time many, many years ago in the early 80s, maybe it was late 80s, end of the 80s, but he was saying, if I'm ambitious, I will be ruthless. He put ambition and ruthlessness together. And it's important to start to make the connection in the mind, that if there's ambitions for the future, when you sink into the present moment, you can start to receive guidance and it's inspiration, but it's present inspiration and trust that leads the way, versus going for future goals. And what we're really learning from Jesus is, if you are clear of your purpose, then you can afford to be carefree with the world, because everything will orchestrate around that purpose. It's the purpose, it's the prayer of the heart that sets everything in motion. So it's not that you have to personally find your way out of the world, but it's just through the devotion, the prayer for God, that's what makes everything come. But it comes without your effort. Like the beautiful section called The Promise in the Course in Miracles. Without your effort, He will go before you, making straight your path and leaving in your way no stones to trip on, no obstacles to bar your way. Nothing you need will be denied you. Not one seeming difficulty, but will melt away before you reach it. You need take thought for nothing except the only purpose you would fulfill. Again, Peace Pilgrim comes to mind. One devotion where you make a decision for purpose, and then you just say, and I'm going to decide to devote my life to peace, and I will not change my mind. You throw that in there too. That's what makes everything click. And then people can say, well, you did this well, or this, you failed at this, you succeeded at this. You don't really believe in worldly success or failure, because the present moment, your connection with God, your connection with Spirit is everything. So therefore, it doesn't make sense. And Jesus says that in the Course. He says you can't judge your advances from your retreats. Your mind is too confused to know what's an advance or what's a retreat, what's a success and a failure. It's much more true and real and humble to say, I do not know. I do not know my own best interest. Jesus is like, very good, that's really good, that's very helpful. I do not know what anything is for. Very good. Are you gullible? Are you stupid? Or are you trusting? The ego would say you're gullible and stupid. But the Spirit says you're trusting. You need only cast your care upon Him, for He careth for you. There's no other thing that's required. So you can see in this movie, even when he's there, he's flowing along in this timeline, again the glimpse, and then when he sees the car of Peter Lassiter, he goes to the assistant, I'll take this. Because it's the only thing is, if there's a motive to get something, it doesn't really fit with giving. It doesn't fit with living a life. Be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. Freely you have received, Jesus said in the Bible. Freely you have received, now freely give. He's saying, tap into the eternal nature of your heart, the eternal nature of life itself, and then you give automatically. You don't have to struggle about that giving, because the more you line up with it and get into it, it feels like the most natural thing ever. More natural than breathing, than a body breathing, is giving from the heart. So it's just, we just keep watching. I think the one moment in this movie really where the miracle happened, you could see it when he was watching the videotape of his wife's birthday. And he could feel the love there. He was singing to her with all of his heart. And at first, when he was watching the video and he saw himself starting to sing, he was like, oh no. Like he was judging himself even for singing. But then the more he watched, you could just see that the peace just come across his face. Like the recognition finally, like, oh my God. Like the angel had told him, you have to figure it out for yourself. And you could see in that moment when he was watching that scene, he just got this peaceful look on his face, like, oh my God, this is what it's for. This is what it's all for. Just a moment of recognition. It's like that's what the entire glimpse is always for. You don't even have to jump timelines for that. You can feel it in any moment. Isn't that a song? If you want it, here it is, come and get it. It's right here and now. All it is just to let it just spark your heart, let it twinkle in your eyes. Okay. There we go. Yeah, it's not ever about what you say, but it is about what you want. It's never the words, but it's like when he was kind of resigning himself, I'll go and do whatever I need to do because it's just my job, it's my life. And he looked kind of resigned and depressed. I'll do what I should do. I'll do what I ought to do in this life. But what Jesus is saying is that heaven, it must, in this world, take the form of a decision. Heaven is not really, in reality, a choice, because it's all it is. It's just what is. But it will take the form of a choice in this world, and that is a choice that can be made. That's what the atonement is. And the main thing about it is you have to want it. That's all it's about. It's not about what you say. It's not about what you do, but it is about what you want. And so there's a part in A Course in Miracles where Jesus says that the greatest gift that God gave his son, he's talking about the sleeping son, is change. The greatest gift God gave his son, not in eternity, but in the sleeping son, is change. The ability to change your mind about your purpose. The ability to choose heaven. The greatest gift that God gave his son was change. The greatest gift is the choice for heaven. That's the one decision that counts, the only decision that really counts. So this is a beautiful scene, because here he is racing to the airport, and he has to be in touch with what he wants, because it's not, from this two timelines in these scenarios, it's like, what is there to say? Really, he's probably pondered that on the drive. What are the words? But it's not really about the words. It's always just about, what do I want? So here we go. Great scene. Here we go. What do you want? Wow, that was a good one. Yeah. So really, it's pretty simple. It's just like, pray for what you want. Say, if I make no decisions by myself, it shall be given me. And lastly, Holy Spirit, decide for God, for me. That's it. That's it. There's nothing more. Nothing more.